אוקיי. הרגע חשבתי שהקו נפל לי. Hi everyone, שלום לכולם, תשי דלק. We are waiting to Geshe, our beloved teacher. So when she will go up to the Zoom, we will make a co-host and we will start the recording. I think that wow, my voice. Is it now raining in Dharamsala? Nobody knows.
I don't know.
יכולה לשים באפליקציה של המזג האוויר בטלפון.
כן, אולי בגלל זה קשה לה להתחבר כרגע. היי, אנילה, תשי דלק. Nice to see you, guys.
Yeah,
Hello.
good to see you too.
The post has not arrived yet, Anila.
Has not arrived yet. Yeah, well,
No, no.
we'll see. I don't
It
even
will.
know if it will arrive, you know.
Varda, you are with your eyes up?
Sorry?
את עם העיניים למעלה?
איזה עיניים למעלה?
לא, לא משנה, לא משנה. גשם הגיע, אני מחברת אותה.
אוקיי.
Yeah, she's here. Okay.
היי, גשמה. למה אני לא רואה בצ'אט רגע. אוקיי.
מה זה עיניים למעלה?
גשמה, can you hear us?
Hello?
I can hear you, but I cannot see your picture.
Oh, okay. Wait. Can you see me? Yeah, I can't see either.
Not yet. Yeah.
Can you see me now?
Yes, I can see you
Good.
now.
Good. I still have some
just
trouble
one
with my
minute.
internet connection.
Okay, now I can see you. But
Okay, I
why
can't
you are
see.
so little?
I don't know. Something is wrong with my internet again for some reason.
Okay.
I can't see anyone. I only see myself.
You want to connect again, to go
Yeah.
out and then connect again?
I'll do that. I'll try that. Okay, thank you. Oh, there you are. Can you see me now?
Yeah, we can see you.
Okay, good.
Okay, now it's great.
Okay, good. All right. So, hello everyone. Let's start right away with the meditation. Okay. Some breathing meditation as usual. Just keeping in the present, watching the breath. and to connect with our own potential and to allow ourselves to be inspired. Visualize your own spiritual master and all the enlightened qualities we ourselves can attain in the form of Buddha Shakyamuni, who appears right in the space in front of you. Wearing the saffron-colored robes of a renunciate. Sitting cross-legged. With a radiant and inspiring body. It's an expression of his great mental qualities. And then think that you're also surrounded by all sentient beings. To remind us why we're listening to the Dharma, why we're practicing the Dharma. And remember that just like ourselves, they're driven by their rude misperception and the resulting self-centeredness. And they're therefore totally controlled, like ourselves, by their afflictions. And so recognizing that commonality, and at the same time being aware of their incredible potential. That they share with us. Let's generate affectionate love. That goes deeper than the superficial afflictions we all suffer from. Connecting with them on a deeper mental level. Generating a feeling of closeness and acceptance. And if we can, concern. Which then gives way to great compassion for all these beings. Focusing specifically on their different sufferings in the form of their afflictions, karmic actions, and their resulting experiences of suffering. generating the sincere wish, may they be free from all these limitations and the unwanted experiences they give rise to. Moreover, may I personally be able to help them to overcome these limitations in the form of afflictions, karmic actions. And of course, the resulting suffering. And then allow for that great compassion to grow stronger. To transform into a special altruistic attitude. Which is a form of courage and inner strength. That is determined to do whatever we can, however long it may take, to help sentient beings overcome their limitations and their resulting sufferings. And then realizing that right now, we can't even properly look after ourselves, being limited in so many ways, especially by our rude misperception. That's generate out of deep love and concern for all sentient beings. The sincere aspiration to become fully enlightened, so that we're actually able to be of greatest benefit not only to ourselves, but also to all sentient beings. I think that it's also with this aspiration that we continue to study the text on mind training. But before we start, let's do the prayer. Once again, deepening our refuge and our motivation. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits, of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits, of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the accumulation of merits, of practicing generosity and so forth, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Okay, great. So let's start. I'll start to share my screen. There we go. Okay. So, having talked about great compassion, well, heartwarming love, great compassion, the great determination, or as I call it, the altruistic attitude. Well, I kind of reversed the order. I didn't speak about the causes, such as equalizing and exchanging self for others, that actually give rise to this heartwarming love or affectionate love, great compassion, and so forth. Well, one reason being that we go through these three all the time. There's not enough time to also go through equalizing and exchanging self for others in the 7-point mind training. But since well, it would be, of course, great to go through them. But since these three are so important, I chose those three, and hopefully we can familiarize with them by going through them time and again. But of course, they actually should be preceded by these two methods, either by the 7 points of cause and effect, as they're called here, or by way of cultivating, equalizing, and exchanging self and others. Now, I would like to start here. It starts with cultivating through the 7 points of cause and effect, but I want to, and I think most of you are aware of the reasons, I want to start with cultivating it through equalizing and exchanging self and others, because the other one for us at this present time is just more difficult. But both are extremely important, and many of the texts stress the importance of practicing both in a combination. All right, but let's start with this cultivating it through equalizing, or this method of cultivating great compassion, well, heartwarming love, as it's called here, or affectionate love, great compassion, and so forth. And of course, eventually Bodhicitta through equalizing and exchanging self and others. Well, first of all, starting with equalizing self and others, well, most of you again are familiar with them, but we're not going through them to get more information or to well, of course, hopefully there is some new information, but it's not the main purpose. It's not just an academic kind of purpose, but also to, of course, as a group, getting together here to put it into practice, most importantly. And it's not that hard. It's not as hard as putting into practice emptiness. Of course, we shouldn't underestimate it. It's difficult for us, especially because of our self-centeredness, which is why when we talk about this method, it starts off with, well, actually, one of the steps that is usually mentioned is identifying self-centeredness. Now, as you may remember, the 7-point mind training, which we'll also go through today, it starts off when it mentions training in the conventional awakening mind, banish all blames to the single source. So basically also talking about self-centeredness. Now, actually, banish all blames to the single source. I just want to say a little bit about this. I could talk about it later, but sometimes the terminology can be a little bit misleading. Banish all blames. The word blame can be easily misunderstood. It doesn't have, well, to blame someone or something oftentimes has a negative connotation. But here in this context, actually, it's not negative at all. So we're not blaming everyone else's self-centeredness, and we're not blaming ourselves either. So in the sense that we first need to distinguish when we say what is accountable for all the trouble, it's our own self-centeredness and it's other self-centeredness. So we're not blaming others, we're blaming self-centeredness. We're not blaming ourselves, we're blaming a certain state of mind. I think that's really important to understand. And sometimes, of course, we come from a Western perspective. How could we not come from a Western perspective? And so certain words, blame, shaming, and so forth, so they have like a negative connotation. But again, it needs to be understood that this comes, of course, from a Tibetan author. And today, before got ready for this class, I was thinking maybe it's also good for those of you who don't know, who haven't studied the Dharma in a Tibetan environment, to say a little bit about that. Because if you know where Tibetans come from, especially the Tibetan teachers, and many, of course, of you know this if you've lived with Tibetans or are living with Tibetans. But anyway, so it's important to really understand that everything should be put into the perspective of their approach to the Dharma. It's really helpful to be around Tibetans to understand how they actually do this, and that some things that may sound harsh to us are not harsh at all. So it's easily misunderstood. But if we know Tibetans, if we know especially the Tibetan teachers, but we may also have had classmates who were Tibetans. Like in my case, I studied with many Tibetans. So for 17 years, they were my classmates. So you get a sense of where they're coming from. They have this natural, and natural has become natural because they have lived with the Dharma, has become part of their culture over more than 1,000 years. And so they have this natural gentleness, first of all, very gentle with themselves and gentle with others. They're very laid back. And they have a great sense of humor. They have the ability to laugh about themselves. Just shortcomings, who cares? You know, I've got good side, I got bad side. Let's laugh a little bit about our shortcomings. So to make fun of themselves, you know, in front of other people, be the butt of a joke and stuff. So that is very normal. It's very much part of their interaction with each other. Of course, not everyone is the same, but usually our teachers are extremely humble and able to, well, reflect on their mistakes without being put off and shocked, and even make jokes of them. So to talk about them freely and make jokes about them. So it's that kind of attitude. And so self-centeredness, yeah, okay, that's my problem. It all goes down, it comes down to self-centeredness. And of course, everyone else's as well, self-centeredness. So not to identify with it like, oh, I'm my self-centeredness. Not at all. It's a temporary state of mind. Temporary in the sense that it can be eradicated. So not to forget that it's not part of the nature of our mind. And in that sense, we're not overwhelmed by it, but we shouldn't underestimate it either. If we get really upset about it, we have a tendency to suppress it. And of course, as we know, when we suppress certain emotions, they come back stronger. So that's a problem, obviously. Therefore, to be aware of it, okay, it's there, it's influencing my actions, so let's get to know it. Let's work with it. And as Nagarjuna has explained, and not just Nagarjuna, many great masters of the past, you turn your own self-centeredness into a spear, into a weapon that destroys itself. You utilize we utilize our own self-centeredness. So initially, our Dharma practice is very much governed by self-centeredness, and that's okay. But using it in such a way, so that's why in the very beginning we're told you don't want to suffer. Well, act in a certain way, watch your own self-centeredness, etc. So in that way, it's like we're giving into our self-centeredness, our wish to be happy and considering our happiness to be more important than others. So we work with it until through this practice, we're able to weaken self-centeredness. And it is through this self-centeredness itself that we use it in such a way that we weaken it and eventually overcome it. And I think that's really important to understand. Therefore, to recognize it, but not identify with it. But also recognize that others are in the same way controlled by their self-centeredness, by that attachment to I and mine. Of course, based on the root misperception, which is so difficult to overcome. So for us as beginners, very unrealistic to think we could overcome that misperception. But the good thing is, although we cannot totally eradicate self-centeredness unless we overcome its root, we can weaken it. We can weaken it, we can decrease it. We can learn to control it to some extent. And in that way, we can learn to control our experiences, our reactions to certain situations, and so forth. And of course, with regard to others. So there are two ways of looking at it. Banish the blame or place the blame on self-centeredness. Well, okay, I've got a self-centered mind. Many of my actions are governed by them. Okay, it is what it is. I'm more than that. I'm not my self-centeredness. There's so much more. I have so many amazing qualities. So to recognize that, but also in terms of others. Yeah, they're just like me. In that sense, just like me. Of course, there are differences. Some people are more self-centered, some people are less. But we know from our own experience, the more self-centered we are, the more miserable we are. So no matter how happy we may look at the outside, I mean, we can pretend. I mean, they're great actors, and we may be, be great actors and kind of come across as so happy and everything. But as long as there's self-centeredness, and the stronger it is, the more miserable we are. And the more self-centered we are, the more our misperceptions of reality increase. I mean, we've all had that moment when there was really strong self-centeredness and we have a sense, everyone is looking at me, everyone is talking about me. So when there's more like me, we feel like everything is just, it's just around me. Everyone is like against me, or everyone is blaming me, and so forth. So in that sense, it's important to recognize that mind, that attachment to I and what's mine, especially my happiness, and then work with it in a rational way, not to be carried away by resentment towards our own self-centeredness and so forth, and ending up suppressing it. So I think that is a healthy approach, and understanding also that it's not taught in a way like, oh, you are so self-centered, you banish the blame. No. Think of where it comes from. Who taught these gentle, great practitioners, who the Tibetans are fortunate to have had so many of them and have many right now. I'm not saying all Tibetans are bodhisattvas and Buddhas. There's some, definitely. But in general, they have this natural gentleness, as I said, laid backness, like being really laid back, and of course a sense of humor. So that is a really healthy approach, I believe, and they're a good example, I think, for us in that way. Anyway, having said all that, so here is where the two intertwine. Equalizing and exchanging self and others. Well, first we need to identify that self-centeredness, where the blame is banished on that, as we've heard from the text, or we go back to the text, of course, and then think of what are its disadvantages. Now, again, we all know the disadvantages. To a certain degree, we all know. So we may think, I can skip that step. I know already. But the point of it is not that you're doing it for the first time and you know already, but the point of it is to take the time, to make the time and go through it and really reflect on it once again, even though you know it, but it affects us emotionally in a different way. To take the time, okay, self-centeredness, what is it? In my own case, do I remember times when I've been self-centered? Sometimes more, sometimes less. Think of an example. Okay, and how did I feel? Did I feel really good and peaceful and satisfied? Or how did I feel? And of course, then it doesn't take a genius, it doesn't take a PhD to understand what it gives rise to, right? I mean, once we're self-centered, then, or when self-centeredness is active, well, some would argue it's always active. I'm not so sure about it. I mean, first of all, when we're in deep sleep, it's not active. When subtler types of mind are active, it's not. It doesn't manifest because it's a coarse mind. So to what degree it can actually manifest? Well, in our dreams, although in the dreams are subtler, yeah, self-centeredness is there, pretty obviously. But the more subtler the mind grows, the less self-centeredness is able to be active, to operate. Therefore, first of all, It's not always there, but it influences pretty much our actions. We're so used to it. And then secondly, it gives rise to other afflictive emotions. I'm saying other afflictive emotions because even the root misperception is an afflictive emotion. Self-centeredness, of course, is one, and then there's anger, hatred, and so forth. So to really give it some time to reflect on this. How does it harm me? How has it harmed me in the past? How does it harm me now? And how may it harm me in the future? So think of some examples. Although, like I said, don't skip this point, because we sometimes think, I know that. I don't need to. It's not about knowing or not knowing. Of course you know this. This is not difficult. I mean, if you're a little bit familiar with it, it's really not difficult. But the point is, to really effectively overcome it, we need to reflect on its negativities. It's like if you want to go on the diet. It's like, if I don't think about, I want to have a certain body type, I want to be happy, I want to be healthy and so forth. Is for whatever reason we're going on the diet, whether for health reason or for reasons of external appearance and so forth. But we give it some time. We think about it. And then we're motivated to eat differently and so forth. Okay, in a similar way here. Understanding past the disadvantages of self-centeredness. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Equalizing self and others. Actually, according to my understanding, it comes later. So never mind. The order here, the sequence here is slightly different. So anyway, so disadvantages of self-centeredness, to reflect on that first. And then the advantages of cherishing others. What are the advantages of cherishing others? And again, go through the examples, through the different moments when we cherished others. How did we feel? How did it benefit our relationships? Did we have regret or not? Did we feel satisfied to a certain degree of satisfaction? So cherishing others in the form of generosity, of not harming others, in the form of patience, love, compassion, and so forth. How do we feel? And to really give it time. Make a time. And you come up with certain reasons why. I mean, from our own experiences, of course, based on our own experiences. And that's most important. Why in my daily life this situation, it happened, it occurred, but this is something I didn't feel happy about. It was controlled by more self-centeredness than usual. And I felt miserable because of that. My relationship suffered. I regretted my actions and so forth. And on the other hand, when I was not self-centered, when I cherished the other person, when I cherished others, how did I feel then? So to just compare the two and really give it some thought. And having thought about these two, now, obviously, cherishing others, from my own experience, well, I felt better, right? I mean, it's not about, shouldn't be misunderstood. Here, cherishing others doesn't mean like I'm going to beat myself up and let everyone walk over me and become like a real friar, a real sucker. No, of course not about that. And I think by now we understand that. It's not about allowing others to do whatever they like, humiliate us and so forth. No, but a deep sense of care and respect for others. And then still, of course, apply wisdom in our reaction. So it's a mental state. So how do we feel in those situations? Okay, number one. Or if you want, it's also okay, equalizing self and others. Like I said, there's a different way of looking at it, actually. So it could also be the way it's described here. Anyway, then self and others are equal. Having established disadvantages of self-centeredness and advantages of cherishing others, it's obvious. Cherishing others, I feel better. Now, are they equally important? Am I not more important than others? So we could also take this approach that we were very much encouraged as part of our studies to always debate. Debate in the sense of, well, if you have another person to debate with, great. But even if you don't, kind of like oftentimes we're divided about something. So on one hand, I would like to be the center of the universe, to be honest. I mean, if I could, I'd be the center. I mean, I feel like that. I'm so used to it. I'm not used to anything else really for many lifetimes. So there's this one aspect of myself, or one mind, that would love that everyone thought I was the greatest person in the world, and everyone, wow, admires me, wants to be just like me. I mean, it can go on and on and on. So there's this part of my mind. And there's another mind that feels, oh no, after what I've learned from my experience, first of all, it's made me miserable. The more I had these thoughts, the more miserable I felt, the more expectations I had of others, the more I was disappointed, and so forth. And of course, with the influence of the Dharma, to a certain degree, I understand rationally it's going to just harm me. It's the root cause of all my trouble, and so forth. Okay, so there are these two sides. And kind of debate those two. What if I were to be the most important person? Am I more important? And why am I more important? So almost like an internal debate. Okay, so why am I more important than others? So because that's how we feel. I'm more important than others. Okay, so I feel my own suffering. Well, what about people I feel really close to? I mean, like my children, for instance. I don't necessarily feel their suffering. It's because of my close feeling towards them that I feel it to a certain degree, but it's not feeling it in the same way as I feel it. So anyway, there are many different reasons, and I'm pretty sure we all come up with our own personal reasons that are probably similar, but still on a certain level, of course, different as well, because we're different people. So why do I feel I'm more important than others? And then to reflect on the fact that sentient beings are so important for so many reasons for our survival. So there's usually three different ways to reflect on. First of all, on just a material level, our mere survival. For our mere survival. Now I'm talking not just of human beings, of course, also animals, insects. So here there's a lot of scientific knowledge that supports the fact that without other animals, without other organisms, even within our body, I mean, I don't know how many millions of organisms there are in our body that are important for our survival. So of course, are they sentient beings? Can they become enlightened? Yeah, if they have a mind, definitely. And of course, insects that we can see with our own eyes, and human beings. It's so much harder with humans. I mean, insects, so much easier to love a fly than certain humans, that's for sure. All right. Therefore, get a sense of how important these other sentient beings are. So there are different ways to do so. I mean, think of everything you like, everything you really appreciate that's important to you on a material level. Food, very important. Clothing, your shelter, everything is required to sustain you. So certain medicines, the buildings, our school buildings, the supermarkets, the streets, the cars, everything. So we especially in the 21st century, actually this meditation becomes a lot more effective in the 21st century, or this particular aspect at least of it, in the sense that we don't live in I don't know, forest somewhere far away from everyone else, not connected. Well, the only way to reach another person is maybe on a horse or walking. No, we're very much dependent on a lot of material things. Our dependence has increased incredibly over the last 100 years. And so therefore, everything we enjoy right now, and we may put to good use actually, it's because of others. So to really give it that thought, usually traditionally it's the bowl of rice or the bowl of hummus or the bowl of whatever tsampa that you think about. So how many people were involved? How many beings were involved in the production of that bowl of hummus? And again, really take the time. I know you all know this. We all know this, but just humor me. Just go through it. Humor yourself in the sense of just go through it and think of it. directly and indirectly. And in that sense, we get a sense of appreciation. They may not have had the motivation to provide us with this delicious meal. No. But as usually our lamas tell us, well, if there's something precious, even without having the intention to benefit us, like an iPhone, an iPad, or whatever you use, whichever device you use, and that's helpful, it doesn't have the intention to benefit you. And still, we appreciate it, we cherish it. So in a similar way, to think all the comforts on the material level, all we need to survive is because of others, directly or indirectly. And because everyone is connected, so that's an effective way to think. And of course, it's difficult to think of all sentient beings in that way. This bowl of hummus and all sentient beings. Well, we don't need to take it that far, but just make that time. And then to think about on a mental level. So here I mentioned the material objects. How about on a mental level? Everything we know. We were born without being able to speak, without being able to walk, without being able to read and write, even lift up a spoon and put it in our mouth. In the beginning, we could do something as simple as that. I mean, just go back in time. Nothing. We knew nothing. I mean, couldn't even talk. And slowly, because of others, our parents first of all, and of course those other beings our parents raised and so forth. So to really give it some time to think about in some detail this net of dependency. So my parents and then other people, my teachers, the people around me, the people on the television, the people who feed the people on the television, on the radio, really like get this sense of interconnectedness, how we're all connected. And everything I know, I may be really proud of all I know, but I should be just as proud of everyone who gave me that knowledge, because without them, I wouldn't know anything. So in terms of all our understanding, I mean, Wikipedia and those people who write Wikipedia and who founded Wikipedia and who feed the people who write. I mean, I can go on, and of course, it's not hard to understand. Really think of it. I have to make the time. If we just go over and go, yeah, I know that, no, there's one comes something interesting. I want to hear about emptiness or something. No, it's not going to affect our mind. We have to make the time. So some of my greatest teachers, when they teach this, you get a sense they really gave it the time. They really reflected on it. They come up with these great ideas, and it's so inspiring. But the thing is, you can do it yourself and come up with these great ideas. So just give it a try. Therefore, so second point, all our knowledge, just worldly knowledge. I'm not even talking about knowing about the Dharma. No, worldly, everyday kind of knowledge. So many people were involved. Again, directly or indirectly, more involved, of course, indirectly. All right, so all this, our skills and abilities, our knowledge from others. And then there is the Dharma, which is basically a tool to finding lasting happiness. That's all there is. A tool of psychological means and methods to find lasting inner peace. We need others again. I mean, there's no one to love. What kind of love is that? I mean, you need an object. You need an object for love and compassion. And other qualities. I mean, generosity, morality, patience, love, compassion anyway. So others give us the opportunity to generate these qualities. Of course, they serve as examples as well, as inspirations in many cases. But generosity, patience, all these, again, independence on others. And of course, it's harder with some people than with others. We need to recognize that, be aware of that, not push it, but also kind of check, can I maybe move even past that? Maybe of like a whole group of people right now, I can't do it, but take one person first, just one. So I don't know, of 100 people, there's a group of people, 100, 1,000, whatever. Okay, 99 to put to the side, take one and see, maybe I can do it with this one person, just one. And look at them. Can they serve me? Can I actually generate positive qualities based on that person? Have they somewhat maybe provided me in the past, directly or indirectly, or provide me right now, directly or indirectly, with what I need for my daily life, or in terms of education, etc. The way I did, the way I went through these other points before. And just give it a try. Okay. And maybe also, whoever this person is, get a sense, of course, also what's underneath that person. So not just on the surface, but also underneath. Okay, so anyway, there's a lot more to be said, and we go through it more when we go through the text. But this far, I think, is enough. This far, as a way to practice this, and I've talked a little bit more about it this time, but okay, recognizing self-centeredness in ourselves, disadvantages of self-centeredness, advantages of cherishing others. So give it some thought. However much time you can give to this, 5 minutes, 10 minutes to each point. And of course, then recognize that, yes, we're important to our own well-being. Of course, my own mind is important to my own well-being, obviously. Otherwise, I wouldn't look after myself. I wouldn't care for myself. But others are equally important in terms of everyday food, etc., education, knowledge, etc., and of course the Dharma. So it's not hard to understand, but to make it effective on an emotional level, we need to reflect on it. So I would like to ask you, if you're interested, to actually try and do this as a practice. All right. But then let's go back to the text. There it is. All right. Now, I talked already about this part here, but I want to say a little bit more about this part here. So here we've heard that in most of the texts on mind training, actually, the ultimate awakening mind is taught first. In the sense, what does this actually mean? The ultimate awakening mind refers to actually a mind that realizes reality, realizes emptiness in combination, well, not in combination, but influenced by conventional bodhicitta, or the conventional awakening mind. Here, awakening mind is just another word for bodhicitta. It's just there are two words in Tibetan, actually. One can be translated as mind of enlightenment, and the other one as awakening mind. There are actually two words that are used interchangeably. And in certain contexts, one word is used more than in other contexts, but they mean the same. So therefore, the conventional awakening mind, conventional bodhicitta, refers to bodhicitta in the way we usually talk about it. And then there's what is called the ultimate awakening mind. It is a mind realizing emptiness, realizing the ultimate nature of all phenomena, directly experiencing it directly, but being influenced by conventional bodhicitta. So influenced in the sense that although when you realize the ultimate nature of all phenomena, emptiness, when you realize it as a non-Buddha, when you realize it directly, you cannot have the wish to be enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. Our mind is limited to what it can do when it comes, especially to the true truth, when it comes to realizing emptiness, the ultimate nature of all phenomena, versus wishing to become enlightened for the benefit of sentient beings. But even though they do not arise simultaneously, they're not active simultaneously, they influence each other. They affect each other. So having generated the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, and based on that mind, when you then later on realize emptiness directly, the mind, that direct realization of emptiness, has a very different effect on our whole being, on our existence, on our practice. So, but anyway, what this is really saying at the same time, when it says first ultimate awakening mind is taught before the conventional awakening mind, it's another way of saying, to some people, you teach emptiness first, You teach about the ultimate nature of phenomena first, and then you teach about love, compassion, and of course, bodhicitta. Okay, that's really what is implied here. So there's two ways to go about it. What is most important in Buddhism? That is, in particular, in the universal vehicle, the methods to becoming fully enlightened. Those two, emptiness and bodhicitta. And of course, here bodhicitta is like a package. It's not just the mind of enlightenment, the aspiration to become enlightened for the benefit of sentient beings, but it's love, compassion, great compassion, which is the driving force of that mind. So really, this is the essence of Buddhism. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the last few years has very much emphasized this, very much emphasized it. And it's in many texts, in many sutras, it's also emphasized that in the beginning, don't do too much, don't too many practices. In the beginning, you should practice compassion. So this is very beautifully summarized. Don't do too much in the sense of, if you cannot do too much, focus on compassion, on great compassion. So this, of course, is part of the package of bodhicitta. And then, of course, if you like, take in the ultimate truth, that is emptiness and so forth. Best is both emptiness and compassion in the form of the package of bodhicitta. Now, for some, emptiness is taught first because understanding reality, understanding our misperceptions that they're not in accordance with reality, that things exist this way, it makes much more sense to them that enlightenment is possible. So it's sometimes described for those of sharper intelligence, but that is misleading. It doesn't mean that they're better in their practice or they're sharper and this is the better method. No. With that respect, they just don't take it on faith. If you just tell them, oh, there's enlightenment, do you want to have it? Aspire for it. Come on, let's do it. Without understanding emptiness, they're not going to do it. For others, it's not necessary. So here in many of the older texts or most older texts, first emptiness was taught and then bodhicitta as part of this particular text here. The practice of the ultimate awakening mind is here. So the practice of the ultimate awakening mind was taught first. In other words, emptiness was taught first and then bodhicitta. According to our own tradition, which follows the gentle protector Tsongkhapa. So gentle protector is actually, in Tibetan, it's like Manjushri. This is a word for Manjushri. So it's saying Lama Tsongkhapa, who's an emanation of Manjushri, or who received instructions of Manjushri, the Buddha of wisdom. So sometimes described as an emanation of Manjushri himself, but definitely having received instructions by Manjushri. So here he's called the gentle protector, which is really just another way of saying Manjushri. So Tsongkhapa, and is found in works such as mind training, like the Rays of the Sun. One of the disciples of Lama Tsongkhapa taught this. Then there are other mind training texts, Essence of Unamant of Lobsang's View, and so forth. The order is reversed for special reasons. It doesn't give the reasons. I didn't find the reasons in the commentary, for instance, by Kyabche Chijan Rinpoche. It doesn't give the reasons. As far as I remember, I don't think it's given there. No, I don't think it is. It's given there. But anyway, the point is we can think ourselves why. Well, for some people, it's just the other way around. First, we're inspired by the conventional awakening mind. And through this inspiration, first of all, we're motivated to practice the Dharma and accumulate a lot of merit, of course, as well. Because with great compassion and conventional awakening mind, I mean, it's said that with this particular mind, when we start off our practice, everything falls into place. So to start with great compassion, with love and everything, then everything else is going to fall into place. And it's so much easier to understand that which seems very complicated from the outside. But moreover, we're inspired to learn about emptiness, and it prepares our minds to understand it in a very effective way. So it makes sense. It makes sense, therefore, that it's taught first. So it just depends on the person, basically. And at certain times in our life, we may receive teachings where emptiness is taught first, and then great compassion, love, and so forth. And sometimes it's the other way around. So here, conventional awakening mind is taught first. Okay. So having explained this, we'll continue training in the conventional awakening mind. Then it says banish all blames to the single source. And again, blame. Blame. I mean, I read a little bit about blame. I mean, in the West, it doesn't have a good connotation, but it's usually blaming others in that sense. So this is not about saying, oh yeah, I have a lot of problems because of all the self-centeredness other people have, right? Oh, there's so many self-centered people. It's not about that. Well, first of all, we don't blame other people. We blame self-centeredness, and our own included, of course. But also blame, like there's this interesting phenomenon that we're all familiar with, this self-serving blame. Self-serving blame, like when things go well for us, I take the credit. And when things go badly, I blame everything else. I blame the weather, I blame the conditions, so inanimate objects, and I blame others. And so self-serving, this kind of self-serving bias, if you like. Well, in this case, I guess we can to a certain degree say, well, when I'm acting in a non-virtuous way, it's my self-centeredness. If I'm acting in a positive way, I can say it's my love, compassion that I naturally have. And that is a healthy way to go about it, to recognize we all have the incredible potential to manifest, endless love and compassion. Endless. This is a very important concept in Buddhism. It's not just love and compassion we like to generate. It's not just great love and compassion where we take personal responsibility for the well-being of others in the form of great compassion. You remember in the beginning, when I go through it, the wish, may I be able to help sentient beings to overcome their suffering. No, it's endless in the sense that, well, great compassion if you think about all sentient beings. So endless here means there's no limit to whom I have compassion towards, and towards, well, yeah, there's no limit towards whom I have compassion for. There's no limit. So limitless in the sense endless, it means like any sentient being, there's no limit. Right now, we're very limited. Not only do we don't have the wish to be of benefit to help sentient beings to overcome suffering. And of course, as I mentioned last time, suffering here doesn't just mean suffering of suffering. It includes also the causes of the suffering of suffering, and any type of suffering, any type of dissatisfactory state. So not only do I have the wish to protect others from that, but it doesn't matter who they are, doesn't matter, like endless sentient beings, they're endless sentient beings, and for all of them, I can have compassion and love. That is called endless love and compassion. We have the potential. We have the potential to generate that kind of love. It is not limited in the sense of, in terms of our potential, it's not limited to sentient beings. And I think a good example are parents. Like, especially in the olden days when you had not only one child, but 2, 3, 4, 5. I mean, some people still have many children nowadays, but it's not as common any longer. So if you have one child, there's love, this, as His Holiness the Dalai Lama calls it, biological love. So it's very much to do, of course, with our hormones and the fact that we are biologically the parents of this child and so forth. So based on that, we generate unconditional love. For many parents, I don't know whether every parent has unconditional love, but I think in general we can say parents generate unconditional love towards their children. And so you have one child, okay, so unconditional love, then a second child. It's not like you have only now 50% of unconditional love for one child and 50% for the others. No, it grows exponentially. It grows it's like first you had, I don't know, 100% for this child. Now you have 200%, 100% for this child, 100% for that child. I don't know how you put it into numbers. Of course, it doesn't really make sense. But the point is, it grows. 3 children, 4 children, 5 children, 10 children. And your love is so much greater. This shows our mind has the ability for it to grow stronger. So your children, and then their children. I mean, if you end up with like 50 grandchildren, well, you can increase this love towards them. And since our mind has that ability, it can go out towards all sentient beings. There's no limit to it. Having said so, therefore, in terms of our love and our compassion, when things go well for us, we can not blame, but kind of say the reason for that is this incredible source of love and compassion we all carry within us. And that's not a self-serving bias, that's realistic. So place the blame when things go wrongly, when we feel miserable and so forth. We know it's that self-centeredness. We shouldn't identify with it. No, it's not in the nature of my mind. But at the same time, it's part of me for now. Let's recognize it. Let's not underestimate it. Okay. And let's work with it. Let's be wisely selfish as the first step. As His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, because we're stupidly selfish. Because we want happiness. We think our own happiness is more important than others. And we torture ourselves more than we would torture anyone else. Basically. Even, well, just not just now, but also, of course, in the long term, because of the consequences of our actions. All right. Therefore, here, understanding self-centeredness in our own self, but also understanding the great potential we have. And at the same time, of course, others have self-centeredness as well. And they are not identical with the self-centeredness. It is not in the nature of their mind, which instead of seeing this other person as one with their self-centeredness, which then gives rise to anger and resentment, we need to separate. We need to separate. And Shantideva does this so beautifully in the Bodhisattva Chayatara, or the Bodhisattva way of life, when he talks in the 6th chapter about this analogy he gives of like getting hit by a stick. When someone hits us with a stick, do we blame the stick or the person who hits us with the stick? And of course, the answer is simple. We don't blame the person. We don't blame the stick. We blame the person, because the stick is under the control of that person. But then Shantideva takes it to the next level. Well, why do we blame the person? Let's blame their self-centeredness or anger in this case, but we can also use self-centeredness. They're under the control of self-centeredness, making them extremely miserable themselves. In the long term, definitely. But also destroying their peace of mind right in that moment. And therefore, distinguishing between the person and self-centeredness. And therefore, self-centeredness, their other afflictions, and their actions. We need to separate those. And we can. It logically makes sense. We don't say, this is Mr. Self-centeredness. No, we say, this is his or her self-centeredness. By way of our language, we distinguish between the person and their attributes. Not saying they're totally separate from them, but not seeing them as one either. And that's why in Buddhism, you can forgive a person, but you don't need to forgive the action. Right? Forgiveness, such an important aspect for our own benefit, really. Because any kind of resentment, any kind of anger, it eats within us. It eats us up. We feel miserable, we feel unhappy, and don't find real peace. So therefore, it's based on that understanding. The Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, spoken about forgiveness on many occasions. He's been asked about it, and he's always stressed this. Forgive the person, not the action. But we don't have that kind of resentment towards an action, towards a state of mind. It's the person. The resentment and the anger and the aggression lie with the person. So to distinguish for our own mental health, but also for our relationship with others. So important. Okay, next step. Toward all beings contemplate their great kindness. Now that's difficult. Let's face it, it's difficult. This text here, as so many other texts, start off with something very difficult, a very difficult aspect of Buddhist practice. Very difficult. The second part is really difficult. Some beings I can do this with, but all, no. And certain groups, definitely not right now. Very difficult. But it's just this method of teaching. This is where we're going. This is the goal. If we're traveling, I don't know, to some faraway country, it seems so far away. Oh my gosh. But this is where we're going. So just see, don't lose sight of the direction. And then slowly taking you there. Okay. So it starts off with this really difficult aspect of all beings contemplate their great kindness. Now, when we do this, when we practice this aspect of the path, or this aspect of this text, we need to adopt a vast mind. A vast mind. A vast mind in the sense of time, in terms of time, but also in terms of the interconnectedness of everything. Okay. In terms of interconnectedness, I already spoke about it as part of the Lamrim what's outlines that I went through before. So recognizing how sentient beings are equal to us, and equal here means equally important to us. So here it's taking it actually a little bit further. Not only are they equally important for our well-being, so just as I'm important for my own well-being, other sentient beings are extremely important for my well-being, but they're also therefore very kind to me. So taking it from that perspective, just simply the fact that because of what they do, that they exist, that their actions have a positive impact on me, a positive influence on me. So taking that into consideration, that's from the point of view of that interdependence. Of course, also from the point of view of the Dharma, giving me the opportunity to generate a certain type of love and compassion, especially if they're obnoxious, if they give me a hard time on a daily basis and so forth, to think, wow, they give me the opportunity to practice patience. And if I have a moment that usually I think, oh, I don't like them, I resent them, they're so obnoxious. If I have a moment where I can actually put this into practice and feel some peace. I mean, we all know this. When there are difficult people around, when they're close by, we don't feel peaceful. So even if we were to, I don't know, make them disappear, it wouldn't be a solution to our problem. The solution to our problem is the moment we practice patience and even maybe love and compassion. Gone. The problem is gone in that moment. Give it 15 minutes and generate, even if it's totally fake in the sense of, well, not totally fake, but it doesn't last in that sense. But just try it. Do the experiment. Just unconditionally generate like an unconditional love and acceptance of them. In that moment, there's peace, total peace. And then, of course, we go back to our old behavioral patterns. But the point is that in that moment, we can understand that their presence, their obnoxiousness has given us that kind of peace, that kind of relief that we previously didn't have. So that level of patience I cannot get with a Buddha if they're always kind and friendly. I mean, if in the end there are no obnoxious people, no worries. Our lamas will manifest as them. I mean, not in the form as those. But I mean, difficult, like being difficult and pressing on our buttons. I spoke about it last time, that many of the greatest practitioners went through incredible hardships. If it wasn't manifested by their environment, if it didn't occur as part of their environment, well, their teachers manifested them, these hardships. So we heard of Geshe Kelsang and Geshe Chekawa, the author of this text, Milarepa and Marpa, Tilopa and Naropa, and those are just the more famous ones. So many other stories. So therefore, in that sense, we can think of these aspects. So in terms of Dharma practice, they're kindness. But also in terms of time, and that's a little harder, going back. If there's reincarnation, and there's a lot of reasoning that supports the existence of past and future lives, and here we're particularly interested in the past, they've been extremely kind to us, at least in the past. Like anyone you find is extremely obnoxious. If there's past life, then we've existed since the beginning of this time. It's impossible to talk about a first life that we haven't existed before, because our mind it's impossible for our mind to be destroyed, but it's also impossible for our mind to ever not exist, because what would it have arisen from? That non-physical entity, that experiencing entity that obviously didn't come from our parents. Your mind is not a continuation of your mom's mind and your dad's mind. That doesn't make any sense. So it's a separate continuum, and it's impossible just to what do you call it? Posit a beginning to it. And we live in this material world, so we have a really hard time with that. But actually, on our daily basis, forgetting about the first moment in this lifetime, just think of yourself when you were 5 years old, or just think of yourself yesterday and today and tomorrow. We actually do have a sense that the mental continuum goes on. So therefore, when we study for an exam, I've taken that as an example before, we don't try to, I don't know, eat the books, or I don't know, have brain surgery in preparation for our exam. No, we use our mind. We use our mind. So we know that when it comes to when it comes to the mind, to prepare it in a certain sense, we need to use the mind, that there's a previous moment of mind that gives rise to a later moment of mind, and that it's not the physical that creates this mind, that it's not the physical that creates the mind that is ready to take the exam. Of course, it is not independent of the brain. It's because of new neurological pathways and so forth that we can take now the exam. But the main cause of these new neurological pathways was the studying mind. So we know this. Naturally, we have this sense, I need to study. I need to use this experiencing entity that is my mind to prepare it. It's not about getting brain surgery to prepare myself for an exam. So we have that natural sense that this moment of mind that is ready to take the exam was preceded by another moment of mind, another moment of mind, another moment of mind. But the difficulty we have when it comes to our first moment of awareness in this lifetime, just conceptually thinking about it, oh no, that comes from our parents' sperm. And actually, when you learn some of the texts, especially the Pramanavartika, especially the text on logic by Dharmakirti, the second chapter, there's so many reasonings in there that support that support the concept of reincarnation, that it becomes quite difficult to think our mind has arisen from the sperm of our parent, the sperm and the egg of our parents. Okay, having said this, and just a brief kind of explanation to that effect. Now, if we've lived before, we've had every relationship with everyone. Think everyone has been your child. Everyone has been your son or your daughter. But we've forgotten. That's it. Gone. Don't know. I mean, I don't remember what I had last week for lunch. No surprise, I forgot what I've done last lifetime and many, many lifetimes before. But by this logic, everyone has at some point been extremely kind to us in the form of our parents or friends, etc. So to really allow our mind to expand a little bit, to go beyond just this lifetime. Our afflictions have one strong tendency, and that is narrow-mindedness. Narrow-mindedness. That is a very strong. But when we're angry, we don't see the good qualities of another person. When we're attached, we don't see the negative qualities. When we're jealous, when we have all these other afflictive emotions, it always leads to some kind of narrow-mindedness. Self-centeredness is the best example. I mean mine, and I don't see everyone else. So therefore, as a reaction against these afflictions, we have to open our mind, past, present, future, and everything else and everyone else we're connected to. And when we do that in the way I just described, it's not that difficult to find the kindness of others. I'm not saying they're not harming us right now in certain ways. Yes, they do. But first of all, our reaction counts. And that doesn't mean we allow people to walk all over us. No, it's our mental response. It's our mental response to them. And of course, think of the past and what may be in the future. Okay. Anyway, that's good enough for today. I wanted to take questions and I forgot again. I'm sorry, I get carried away once I start talking. So I've bombarded you with a lot of ideas today. I want to go do some meditation, of course. So if you have questions, please hold them for next week. Let's start with questions next week. If that's okay. Yeah. My apologies once again. I get carried away. All right. So for now, let's get a taste of the whatever I've talked about, especially this meditation on equalizing and exchanging self for others. Okay. Starting again with mindfulness, with just being in the present. Watching our breath. And then let's start by focusing on what's called self-centeredness. Does it make sense when Geshe Chekawa says that it is to blame for all troubles, our own and those of others? Self-centeredness, which is a type of attachment to I and mine. That considers our personal happiness and well-being to be more important than that of others. It gives rise to the avoidance of short-term problems, and an unwillingness to strive towards long-term happiness. And it's due to it that we're usually unable to bear the slightest harm. And it gives rise to a constant sense of an impending loss, or at least causes us to worry about I and mine. The stronger self-centeredness, the more likely there's fear, sense of loneliness. Not to mention self-centeredness giving rise to other afflictive emotions such as resentment, afflicted desire, attachment, and so forth. Which is why so many great masters of the past, like Shantideva, have described it as the root for all our trouble. So let's compare it to cherishing others. A mind that considers others' happiness equally important to our own. Possibly more important than our own, because we're just one person, while others are many. Great masters of the past have described it as the source of all happiness, inner peace, and satisfaction. Does that make sense? Having an attitude that, without neglecting ourselves, is driven by a deep sense of care and love for other sentient beings. Can that really be a true source of happiness? But besides these two types of minds, let's look at their focus, self and others. But self-centeredness being mainly focused on ourselves, and cherishing others being focused on other sentient beings. Am I really more important for my own benefit, for my own happiness? Or are others equally important for my own happiness? How about in terms of my own survival, our food, clothing, shelter, and so forth? Think that everything that is required to sustain us is provided by other sentient beings, humans, and other beings. Even something as insignificant as a plate of hummus depends on so many other beings. And then think of everything we know, our skills and abilities, our education, mental abilities we take for granted depend on so many others. Since we acquired them directly or indirectly in reliance on other sentient beings. Especially when it comes to a mental development in the form of the Dharma, transforming our mind. It's dependent on other sentient beings. And not only on our lamas, those who write the books, print the books that we read and study and meditate on. But also in terms of generating great love and compassion, which you can only do in dependence on all sentient beings. Without the sentient beings providing us with the opportunity to practice generosity, moral discipline, patience, kindness, and so forth. So, to conclude this meditation, let's take a moment to check whether, based on that short analysis, we can get a sense that others are equally important when it comes to our own happiness. And spend a short moment single-pointedly just focus on that conclusion. And allow for it to sink deeper into your more emotional levels of your mind. And of course, let's dedicate all the positive potential we accumulated together today. Let's not let it go to waste, but dedicate it first of all towards our own enlightenment. Maybe be able to actualize our fullest potential, however difficult it may be, but may this become a powerful cause for our own future enlightenment as a Buddha. It may also have an effect on our inspiration. Great lamas like His Holiness the Dalai Lama and so many other great masters. May our positive potential help them to have a long and healthy life so that they may continue to guide and inspire us. And may our positive potential have an effect on all other sentient beings right now, in particular on the war that's going on right now in Israel. So, or in Gaza. So may this war be over soon, and may it be give rise instead to peace, lasting peace. And may sentient beings on all sides overcome their resentment, their fear, and everything else that causes so much suffering, and may they find love and happiness in their hearts. And may everyone be safe on both sides. Okay, so then let's dedicate. Based on the thoughts I just mentioned, so through the merits of these virtuous actions, may I quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All-powerful Chinrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind not yet born arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. Okay, thank you very much. I hope you didn't hear my neighbor having a fight with someone. I don't think my microphone picked it up. It's quite funny. She can talk so fast. My neighbor, she's Tibetan. She talks so fast. But you didn't hear. Okay, good.
We didn't.
All right. Anyway, well, have a good evening, a good day wherever you are. And next time we'll start with questions. If you have any questions, if you don't, we'll just continue. But if you do, I try not to forget. Okay, have a great week. Be safe. And I see you
Thank
next
you,
week.
Geshe.
Thank you.
Thank you, DFI.
Bye.
Thank you, Dolly.